Welcome everyone to CDO's magazine series of one-on-one interviews with key influencers, data leaders, and CDOs. I'm your host, Robert Lutton, Vice President, Sandhill Consultants, and I'm coming to you today from Toronto, Canada, working with the CDO magazine. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Tim Hoolihan, who is a practice lead for data and analytics at Centric Consulting. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here, Robert.
Yeah, no, it's our pleasure. I was looking at a little bit of your background, and it seems that you have a passion for data. Can we ask, how did you get started in this path?
So like a lot of folks of my career length and age group for data, there's a sort of several different paths into it. So some folks come into it from the business side, or maybe academia or science, and other folks kind of start in the software side and meander into it. And that latter path was mine. So I started as a software developer, worked in the utility industry right out of school, and then bounced around to retail shop, and then got interested in consulting and enjoyed the software side, but really found myself with a passion for data and how that could be used to optimize business and whatnot. So later in my career, I took a chance to go over to a company that was dealing with a large amount of data in the marketing B2B space, and moved kind of fully into data science at that point in my career. And then after a stint of 4 or 5 years there, as I sort of saw an acquisition on the horizon, I decided to go back into consulting and head over to Centric for data and analytics.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to lending your experience to the pool of information being shared at the CDO magazine website, and we appreciate you doing this video interview for us. If I can sort of ask, we've got some questions we put out there at the beginning, and from your perspective, we want to sort of tap into your knowledge, your experience that you've had over the past several years, especially with the Centric Consulting. But in your opinion, how do you think organizations could align their data governance practices with their AI and machine learning initiatives to ensure optimal performance and maybe mitigate security risks?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and it really leans into the area that I came into data science with and probably have the most passion, and that's the AI, machine learning, and whatnot. As any AI and machine learning practitioner will tell you, data quality is just really key, especially when you look at technologies like supervised learning and things. So that, the old principle is garbage in, garbage out for models. Right. And so having good, clean, available data sets is fundamental to that. And obviously, a good data governance program leans into making that available and enabling users to do that. I think it's worth noting as the tools get better and easier to use, as it becomes less common to need, a PhD to do the very initial models and things, then having data enabled for the entire org, you can now have domain users, looking at platforms and tools to build their own models that would then allow for innovation from business and domain side users that are really experts in the field. And so I think data governance really supports that as well.
And any thoughts on how one might mitigate the potential security risks? And I know we'll talk into more in depth, but because obviously you're right. I mean, AI and generative AI is going to put this in the hands of the layperson that may not know enough about the security risks. Any thoughts on how one could mitigate that as well?
Yeah, I actually started. I talked about being in a company that worked in the marketing B2B space doing models, and we did that for other customers, and some of those customers had HIPAA data disclosed on a phone call, or PCI data and other things like that. So right away, one of the first priorities out of the box was for us to look at redaction and making sure that we weren't presenting any of that data, even internally, to folks who didn't need to see that data. So sometimes even there's that sensitivity in the data set you've got, and that's very important to deal with. Obviously, bringing good governance practices there, minimal usage, having your employees trained and understanding all the the issues that come with HIPAA compliance, PCI compliance, all of those other types of regulations is important. Um, but flipping to what I think the conversation centered around today is, the concern of what do I do with an LLM that I don't own? Um, if my users or employees are typing in data to ChatGPT or other things,
Right.
understanding when is that data being used to retrain another model, and could it potentially show up somewhere else? So if somebody's typed in a couple paragraphs from a proprietary document or a contract or something else sensitive, is there a chance that the vendor of that model now has access to that data? That's really important to understand from an AI governance perspective, what tools you select and what the implications are for your users, and making sure that the users understand that and are trained to safely use AI technologies. I don't think there's an organization around that's not having that conversation today, trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a good point there because who doesn't have access to ChatGPT and wants to just sort of put in this information to sort of say, hey, let me feed you this information so that you can give me a more valid response, not realizing that they're actually giving away some of the secret sauce in the organization, or they could be causing potential security risks. Um, very very good, synopsis about you looking at redaction and how you handle sensitive data. Uh, Again, leveraging your experiences, or your experience from the past organizations, what strategies have you seen successful organizations employ to integrate data analytics into their existing business processes?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I really enjoy about analytics is how closely it is tied to optimizing business value and making people's jobs easier, more effective, and all of those things. Um, I have a good friend that runs a user experience consulting firm, and I often discuss with him that I really see data and analytics as almost another side of the same coin, in that that people should be starting with user experience of a report or other piece of analytics or insight, in that it's not worth building if it's not going to drive business value, help you meet your organization's goals. So if you start with that and then work backwards to the solutions, rather than sort of this, well, we've got a bunch of data, we know we can do cool things with it, and then let's find out if that actually saved us some business value. Organizations are just running too thin these days in terms of
Right.
technical staff. There isn't enough technical people in the market to fill the need. Technical folks are expensive, and so the ones you do have need to be working on something of business value. So starting from that place, having a strategy to prioritize what are the main functions of my business and what do I need better insights to do it, and then working backwards into that strategy. Obviously, there are sort of quote unquote non-functional concerns, governance, security, other things like that um, that have to be baked into the platform as well, and have to be a part of the work you do, and how you safely and securely store platforms. But to me, it's that fundamental integration of the business users, and in starting with the place of business value. I guess I'd take it one step further as I think about it too, to say, just keeping them involved throughout that process, and then enabling them, with data and tools to come up with their own insights. Um,
And when you talk about keeping them involved, you're talking about the business community that you're servicing, right?
Correct, and yeah, and it's always worth pointing out, like we work with some nonprofits and other things like that. So
Sure.
where I'm using business users, you can sub in, domain experts or any other area there, but you're just talking about your internal clients to whoever you're serving within your organization.
Oh, no, no, great. I do appreciate it. Uh, as we turn back to maybe the AI for a minute again, uh, do you have any insights for the most effective methods for estimating the return on investment for AI or machine learning projects in various industries? Because obviously you deal with, you know, some for-profit, some not-for-profit organizations. Be interested in any insights you can provide in that area.
Sure. Yeah, there's some things I really recommend in this space, and it's really changed a lot because of the rapid evolution of tools and things. Um, I referred a little bit earlier to, maybe in that 2015 to 2017 era when I was first working in the deep learning space. I, worked some in stats and traditional like R and
Right.
things like that before then. But really, that's around the time period like TensorFlow and Keras and other things were taking off, and deep learning was becoming a little more practical for product organizations. And it was still very complex. You had to build your own. And so when an organization was going to do that, one of the first things they would do was hire somebody that had a PhD, a
Right.
data scientist, very specialized, highly trained individuals. And so you had to have pretty big use cases to pay for a team of that makeup. Right now, there are a lot of out of the box tools. So a couple I'd say, in the on Microsoft Azure, you've got Azure ML, AWS has the SageMaker. Um, Over in Salesforce, you have things like Einstein, Copilot, like all these other ways to get into AI without writing a custom model.
Right.
And because of that, I think, if you start with your standard estimation of business value, I've got a process, say it's supply chain, right? And I've got interruptions within my supply chain that happened. And I think if I can intervene with those interruptions, I can reduce the impact of it, right? And save the cost. That ought to be something your domain experts can fairly well estimate, right? So you say, okay, if you know that you're not going to get XYZ shipment once a month or so in this region, what would you do? Would you order extra? How would you resolve the problem? And then what's the value of that? Then you take that back and you say, what's the cost of one of these out of the box models? That's much, much lighter. You're not focused on accuracy. You're just focused on, can I actually get data in that's meaningfully going to help me predict the outputs? And can I produce an output prediction 60, 70% of the time? Something like that. Now I've proven I have the input data I need. I can produce a prediction. I can get it to someone in time for them to take an actionable step and intervene with the business. If you've done that end to end and the accuracy is the one issue holding you up, now it's maybe worth that additional investment to build a custom model and those type of things. So to me, it's really going back to the how do you do that? It's business value and it's lightweight process, and then you iterate as the additional return justifies it, right? Because now by the time I'm going to hire that data scientist, I know, okay, here's, maybe again, say I'm at 65% accuracy. I might have a better sense of where the ceiling is. Maybe I can only get to 80 or 85% because there's some noise in the data or other issues around it. Um, and at that point, too, I know I've got everything else in the pipeline set up. I just need a custom model. I can probably get a pretty good estimate of my cost. So I've deferred that big investment decision until I have the most data.
Yeah, and it's great to hear that, if the out of the box will suit for 67%, 60 to 70%, then do you need to go to a fully customized version, right? So, and it would be depend upon the business value and the use cases. So, thank you. That's good, valuable input. Because normally we have people sort of telling us that they're, go into that full custom AI model and start from there. So good to hear some recommendations about the box approach as well.
Sure, and
Uh,
if I may, sorry to interrupt, just
no, no.
something you said there struck me that I kind of described the happy path that assumes you're going to go build that model. Maybe the best reason to justify that methodology is, let's assume that you do the out of the box model and you find that you've given that prediction to somebody locally, and they try to take action and they actually can't replace the shipment in time, right? And so
Right.
now all the business value's gone out of the equation. You've got a technical POC and you've spent the cost, but that's much lighter than the other costs. If you'd spent the entire, let's say that the custom models in the neighborhood of 300, 500K,
Right.
whatever, um, and then you find out that there's no intervention to actually get the business value out of it, even though you've made an accurate prediction, that's a failed project.
Right.
Where an out of the box POC that just lightly uses, again, Azure ML, SageMaker, one of these types of tools, Auto ML, and then fails, fail fast, before you spend a lot of dollars.
Tim, thank you very much indeed. On behalf of the CDO magazines. We really appreciate you providing your time. And we hope that we get a chance to have you come back and share your knowledge and experience on data analytics, leveraging AI and ML models. So,
No worries. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate the conversation. And yeah, I hope your users got something out of it. Be happy to come back.
absolutely. And for our listeners, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews.